today we give thanks to Almighty God for the canonization of John Henry Newman in this magnificent cathedral church of Rome. It was here that Newman was made a deacon, and in this cathedral, which is a living testimony in stone of the unity of the church, meant much to him. The church has given us in John Henry Newman a man with a great love of the church and a great pastor of souls. As Father Ignatius pointed out last night in the Chiesa Nuova, that perhaps he will never have the popularity of Padre Pio or Thérèse of Lisieux or Mother Teresa. He did very few great and wondrous things. He didn't perform miracles whilst he was alive. He didn't do magnificent things in the way that many saints do. He was, above all, a priest and engaged for most of his life in the ordinary duties of his vocation. But at the same time, he had intellectual gifts which enabled him to engage with the theological and philosophical issues of the day. He had a wide-ranging knowledge of all kinds of subjects, from mathematics to philosophy and patristic studies. In fact, in one summer vacation, he read the whole corpus of patristic works. His greatness as a thinker is partly due to his intellectual ability to approach the questions of the day from a rather different angle and a broader perspective, because of his wide-ranging reading and knowledge. Like his spiritual father, St. Philip Neri, we cannot put Newman in a box. We shouldn't make him say the things we want him to say. We must let him speak for himself, and he will teach us much. I'm sure that no one would be more surprised than Newman to find himself a canonized saint. In his own lifetime, it was suggested that he led a saintly life. And putting pen to paper in his typical way, he said, "I have nothing of the saint about me, as everyone knows, and it is a severe and salutary mortification to be thought next door to one." And touchingly, he concluded, "It is enough for me to black the saint's shoes, if St. Philip uses blacking in heaven." Nonetheless, the church thinks otherwise, and after due deliberation and the approval of two miracles brought about by the intercession of the saint, John Henry Newman, the Londoner, born in 1801, who died a cardinal of the Holy Roman Church in Birmingham in 1890 on the 11th of August at 8:45 in the evening, is now raised to the honors of the altar. He is held up to us as a model of Christian life and virtue, and as an intercessor in heaven. So perhaps we should ask ourselves what kind of saint Newman is, and what he can say to the church in our day. It was Pope St. Paul VI who said, "Guided solely by love of the truth and fidelity to Christ, he arrived at the fullness of wisdom and peace." It was, in other words, the saintly cardinal's relentless and heroic search for truth and holiness which brings us to this morning's celebration. It was while the young John Henry was still at school in Ealing that he underwent what he later called his first conversion. In 1816, he became, in his own words, convinced of the existence of myself and my Creator. This was no mere intellectual realization, but an inner conviction that he was subject to a divine authority and bound by a definite dogma. He surrendered himself completely to God's will and began his lifelong search for truth and holiness. He now had, as he said himself, that vision of the unseen, which is the Christian life. That vision of the unseen, which is the Christian life. He felt himself to be God's creature and responsible to him, God's possession, not his own. It was this first conversion that was to inform the life of our new saint. And we often think of the turning point in Newman's life was his reception into full communion with the Catholic Church in October 1845. But it was for him a natural progression of growth into his ideals. It cost him much to give up his family, friends, and career, to join a church that he knew nothing about and had no taste for. But nonetheless, that lifelong dictum of holiness rather than peace, which he repeated time again, that determination made him a saint. The pursuit of holiness and truth were for St. John Henry the driving force of his life. We see throughout his long life how he championed the cause of revealed truth and was fearless in proclaiming it, not only by his many writings, but also by the institutions he established. He did much to promote the Christian cause in bringing the Congregation of the Oratory to England, founding a university in Ireland and a school in Edgbaston. He worked tirelessly as a parish priest and had a fatherly care for his Oratorian community. He guided countless people with letters of spiritual direction. He gave light to those who were searching for the truth and continues to do so through his published works of theology, philosophy, his sermons, and his devotions. It was at that time, you could say, as the BBC would say nowadays, Newman became a national treasure. He became a father to the Catholic Church in Britain, and indeed in many other parts of the English-speaking world. He was buried on the 19th of August in 1890. 20,000 people lined the streets of Birmingham to pay their last respects. The Times gave him a full-page obituary, and messages of condolence poured into the Birmingham Oratory from every corner of the world. That gift of friendship was with him then and remains now. It is moving to see so many people here this morning from so many different nations and backgrounds, giving thanks for the canonization. The presence of so many bishops, priests, religious, and lay faithful gathered here in Rome over the weekend is itself a fitting tribute to this great son of the Church. Today is a great day for the congregation of the Oratory throughout the world, and for the Church in England and Wales. It's been said before, John Henry is the first English confessor to be canonized since before the Reformation. More importantly, Newman now belongs to the whole church, to all those men and women from many different parts of the world who draw inspiration and help from him. We welcome especially the representatives of the Church of England with us this morning, which formed our new saint in faith and was so dear to him for half his life. Newman speaks to us in different ways, and we're probably here to pay our respects to him for different reasons. As a preacher, a writer, a theologian, and a father of souls. But perhaps he speaks to us, but however he speaks to us, we are united in giving thanks that his life and legacy is now a gift of the universal church. Many of us believe that Cardinal Newman made a unique contribution to the church's understanding of herself, especially in terms of the role of the laity, the place of conscience, and the development of doctrine. The church has yet to decide on giving Newman the accolade of Doctor of the Church, but it's something we can now pray for and work towards. I'd finally like to pay tribute to the many friends and scholars of Newman, impossible to enumerate, who over the years have promoted his cause of canonization. One person I feel constrained to remember is the late Father Gregory Winterton of the Birmingham Oratory, known to many of us. His indefatigable work and dedication to Newman's cause was monumental. We are truly grateful to him and to so many others for helping to make this celebration possible. So we go from here this morning rejoicing that John Henry Newman is at last acclaimed a saint of Holy Mother Church, and probably already polishing St. Philip's shoes.